Tonight, the terrifying new details of a deadly inferno at a ski resort in the Swiss Alps. The hidden danger.
Everyone was banging on the windows and stuff, screaming. It was like a horror movie.
What turned a New Year's celebration into horror. Canada's tightened immigration rules for 2026.
They don't feel welcomed here. It was not their wrongdoing to get caught in this perfect storm.
Why we'll see fewer residents, students, and temporary workers. And remote work comes to an end.
There's a lot of mayhem going on. I think lots of people are unhappy about returning.
The reaction as thousands return to the office.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. We are learning more tonight about that devastating fire at a ski resort bar in the Swiss Alps, including what it was like for those trying to escape. Investigators in Switzerland have determined a likely cause, pointing to sparklers used during New Year's celebrations. At least 40 people are dead, with more than 100 injured, some still fighting for their lives. This is what the bar in the Swiss Alps looked like this morning, with police barriers and tarps covering up the site where a fast-moving fire caused the deadly tragedy. Investigators now say that evidence suggests the cause was sparkler-topped bottles of champagne held too close to the ceiling. This is how some witnesses describe the scene.
So there was a servant that was on the shoulders of another one, and so she was holding the champagne way too high, and so it went on the ceiling.
Everyone was banging on the windows and stuff, screaming. It was like a horror movie, but they couldn't get out. I think the windows were too thick.
Italy's Golf Federation confirmed a 17-year-old athlete is among those killed. Authorities say DNA and dental records are being used to identify other victims. Many were teenagers from a number of countries. No Canadians have been reported among them.
Minuit 3, j'ai reçu Bonne année maman, je t'aime.
This woman is searching for her 16-year-old son, Arthur. She says she last heard from him in a text that said, "Happy New Year, Mum, I love you." Switzerland is now in a period of national mourning that will last 5 days. The FBI says it foiled an ISIS-inspired terrorist attack planned for New Year's Eve in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Now, New Year's Eve, we all know, is a wonderful time where we all celebrate the past year. And thanks to the law enforcement that stands with me today and others, we are fortunate that people can do that.
An 18-year-old North Carolina man has been charged. He's accused of planning an attack at a grocery store and a Burger King where he was an employee. Investigators say he spent time online reading ISIS-related material and that they found plans, weapons, and a handwritten note at the suspect's home saying he hoped to die at the hands of police. Mark Carney will head to Paris next week for a meeting of the Coalition of the Willing in efforts to secure a peace deal for Ukraine. The Prime Minister will be in France on Monday and Tuesday. The goal is to push for a lasting negotiated peace deal with strong security guarantees for Ukraine. Canada is on track to accept fewer new residents, international students, and temporary workers in 2026. The move, all part of Ottawa's new immigration plans. CTV's Rachel Aiello now with how this could play out in the workforce.
This year's immigration targets may challenge the resolutions of many who want to call Canada home in 2026. Among them, international students. The federal government is cutting the number of study visas it's granting this year in half. This PhD candidate, who came to Canada from Iran to study in 2021 and is now doing cancer research, says while the cut was necessary, it's left many prospective international students in limbo.
They don't feel welcomed here. It was not their wrongdoing to get caught in this perfect storm that was made by the policymakers.
Canada will also be accepting fewer temporary workers this year. Overall, the government plans to admit 380,000 permanent residents in 2026, down from the target of 395,000 admissions in 2025.
There's always winners and losers. The winners are going to be the Canadians, particularly the young Canadians looking for that entry-level job that has been occupied by a foreign national. The losers are going to be the foreign nationals who came here with false promises of permanent residence.
While it may be shaping up to be a challenging year for the thousands with temporary status who can't stay, Canada is offering express entry for newcomers who speak French or have skills in key sectors, such as the building trades, agriculture, and healthcare.
Instead of a broad, open arms approach to immigration, it's more selective now. It's more focused on ensuring that the economy can absorb their permanent residents and the workers coming in.
Linked to Prime Minister Mark Carney prioritizing economic immigrants is a promise to spend more than $1 billion attracting new talent by incentivizing leading researchers and innovators to come to Canada. Heather?
Thanks, Rachel. CTV's Rachel Aiello in Ottawa. The group petitioning for a referendum on Alberta separation can start collecting signatures tomorrow. The Alberta Prosperity Project has from Saturday until May 2nd to collect just under 178,000 signatures to qualify. Elections Alberta approved the referendum question before Christmas, but said the group could not collect signatures until certain details were finalized. Thousands of public sector workers across both Alberta and Ontario are returning to the office full-time this year. It follows a push by major banks and businesses to restore in-person employment after the COVID-19 pandemic. CTV's Beth McDonnell has reaction.
Tens of thousands of Ontario public servants have known for months. Come Monday, it's reality. They're required to return to the office 5 days a week.
I think there's a lot of mayhem going on. I think lots of people are unhappy about returning. We're wondering what the traffic is going to be like.
That's an especially big concern in Toronto as the city continues to deal with a congestion crisis. The government workers will be joining thousands of other employees at banks, telecom, and tech companies who've also been called back from remote work. But some are saying there should be compromise and flexibility.
I would really hope that they will do the productivity and efficiency studies, because it may not be necessary to bring everyone back to the office 5 days a week. 4 days is sufficient for morale, for camaraderie, for leadership issues.
Others point to a sharp drop in daytime foot traffic among retailers and restaurants in the downtown core, which still haven't rebounded.
But from the government's perspective, they're taking kind of a holistic approach to say, no, we got to come back to work. And ultimately, you know, with one eye on the economy and one eye on some of the other issues that, you know, they find that, you know, they believe that employees are more productive in the office.
The Toronto Region Board of Trade says on peak days, downtown offices already have over 80% occupancy. It says while employers have different needs, it's seeing an uptick in demand for space, with this latest shift happening at a time when Toronto must consider its position across the continent.
We're competing, you know, not just with other Canadian cities, but with other employers across the continent to attract businesses, to make sure that we're an attractive place to work and to do business. And a lot of our peer cities across North America have also seen a trend towards return to office.
Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
As employees get set to trudge back into the office, we're getting a new glimpse at how much money the people at the top are making. It was a record year for the country's highest paid CEOs, but as Kamal Karmali shows us, it's highlighting a growing income gap.
Here at Canada's busiest mall, new items stocked for the new year. But affording them...
Are you able to afford shopping?
No. ...is a different story.
The cost of living, yeah, it's become really hard.
Especially for the many here making minimum wage.
I feel bad because I can't buy expensive things for like my friends and family.
Elizabeth and Jillian work as servers. The holidays may have left them high in spirit but low on cash.
It's crazy that there's like billionaires and millionaires while people can't even afford to eat.
Now a new report shows what Canada's top CEOs get paid in just over 1 day is more than what the average Canadian worker makes in an entire year.
Yeah, CEOs have always been paid more than the average worker, but it's the gap that has really grown substantially.
The average Canadian worker made just over $65,000 in 2024. Compare that to the average pay for Canada's top 100 CEOs at more than $16 million, a new record that's $200 248 times the salary. And that pay gap has been climbing for years. CEOs were paid 50 times more than the average Canadian worker in the 1980s. That gap has been surging over the decades, now hitting a new high.
When companies do well, the CEO sees huge expansion in their bonuses. And companies have been doing very well since the pandemic.
One of those companies is Shopify, its CEO topping the list with a new record, earning over $200 million, nearly tripling the second highest paid CEO in Canada.
It's easier for CEOs to raise their own pay and not affect the profitability of the company than it is to raise worker pay, which has a much bigger impact on the profitability.
The report also confirming what many have already reported, the costs of goods and services in Canada, like groceries, increasing at a much faster rate than workers' wages. Kamal Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
Canadian hip-hop star Drake is facing fresh legal troubles to start the new year. A new class action lawsuit claims the Toronto rapper and several others used proceeds from a gambling website to obscure transfers of money, which were allegedly used to inflate his streaming music play counts. The suit centers on the Stake.us online casino, which Drake often promotes on his social media. The plaintiffs are seeking at least $5 million in damages. And Will Smith is being sued by a violinist claiming wrongful termination and sexual harassment. Brian King Joseph claims the rapper and actor exhibited predatory behavior and was grooming him for sexual exploitation. Will Smith denies the allegations. Saskatoon police are introducing a new measure to help end impaired driving in the city. CTV's Alison Bamford shows us why officers are now conducting mandatory roadside breathalyzers at traffic stops.
Framed memories of Bonnie Stevenson's son, Quinn, killed by an impaired driver in 2013. His smile still lights up the room.
There isn't any part of our lives that it hasn't affected.
She hopes others won't have to share the same grief, with Saskatoon police rolling out new mandatory alcohol screening. As of January 1st, drivers pulled over for any traffic offense should be prepared to give a breath sample. The city police hoping it helps curb impaired driving after seeing cases increase in 2025.
Unfortunately, it's a trend that's been going on for several years, and that is something that we have to make sure we look into and enforce for public safety.
Changes to Canada's criminal code in 2018 allow officers to demand a breath sample without reasonable suspicion. If drivers refuse the breathalyzer, lawyers say they'll face charges more serious than blowing over the legal limit.
Every time I see an area where the local police service begins using the mandatory alcohol screening, there is a surge in refusal cases. So always blow. You're better off to blow and let the lawyer handle it later.
Other services across the country, including Saskatchewan RCMP, have already adopted the routine practice. Officers say it takes 30 seconds to do, and advocates believe it has the potential to save lives.
After you lose your 17-year-old son to an impaired driver, there isn't anything you wouldn't do to try to save any other family from that heartache that we have dealt with.
Within the first day of mandatory alcohol screening, Saskatoon police say they performed 33 tests, resulting in 2 suspensions. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Coming up, the Trump bump for Canadian tourism.
From air, car, rail, cruise ship, just like we've never seen before.
How one province is planning to carry its 2025 tourism success into the new year. 2025 featured a major boost in domestic travel, with many choosing to not cross the border into the U.S. And tourism operators here are expecting another big year ahead. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth on the travel trend and how people are preparing for it.
All is quiet on the Halifax waterfront, but Dennis Campbell is still savoring the memories of last year's record-breaking tourism season.
From air, car, rail, cruise ship, just like we've never seen before.
Tensions between Canada and the U.S. resulted in many Canadians choosing to spend their vacation dollars closer to home. The Canada Strong Pass, provided by Parks Canada, also had an impact, offering free or discounted admission to sites and landmarks across the country. Last year, the pass was linked to a 6.5% increase in Via Rail ridership, a 13% jump at Parks Canada sites, and a 15% increase in National Museum visits. The pass is available again this year. Campbell expects 2026 to be even busier than last year.
Right now, our early numbers for 26 are really strong for domestic travel.
Some point to the recent drop in gas prices, allowing Canadians to keep their travel habits north of the border.
The gas prices falling for domestic short-haul travel is fantastic for as an incentive. It just makes the holiday or the trip much more affordable.
The tourism operators are also forecasting a record-breaking cruise ship season for the Maritimes and Quebec. Last year in Halifax, more than 200 ships came to port, with even more expected in 2026.
What we saw this year, which we never saw really before, was people getting on a 7-day cruise in Montreal and getting off in Halifax, which was the last port before Boston or New York, so that they could stay within Canada, which, as I say, we never saw that. We saw that quite a bit this summer.
One of the many travel trends recently witnessed as domestic tourism continues to grow in Canada. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Still to come, financial trends. Taking stock of Canada's economy with a new year of challenges ahead. Canada's economy has taken some hits this year after Donald Trump's tariffs rocked the global status quo. Governments and businesses are trying to weather the storm while the cost of living and affordability continues to be top of mind. Omar Sachedina sat down with CTV's chief financial correspondent Amanda Lang for her take on what's to come.
Amanda, it's so great to have you here. You know, sometimes the economy is like the weather. There's the actual temperature and then there is the real feel. And many Canadians right now are just feeling squeezed. So give us a state of the economy heading into 2026.
Yeah, I like that analogy because it's true that the way that we measure it can say, well, actually, we're doing better than we thought, which is true, Omar. And a lot of Canadians will say, well, I'm not, and I don't feel that. And like the weather, it's different region by region. And it's really important to remember that it does matter where you live, what the job situation is, what the local economy is, because that's what affects us so deeply. What I would say is pleasantly surprised by 2025. You know, we had a trade war to contend with. Our economy actually proved to be more resilient than most people thought. And the fact that that showed up in jobs at the end of the year is really important for instilling confidence. What we'll be watching is, does that turn into business confidence in 2026? Will they start spending? Because when businesses spend, it actually feeds through to a whole bunch of other really important things.
And we saw the governor of the Bank of Canada reflect some of those sentiments in his year-end comments. On a day-to-day basis, though, in terms of cost of living, things like mortgages, rents, grocery prices, wages, what does it mean for Canadians out there?
It is such a mixed bag on affordability. We did get a read on inflation at the end of the year, and of course, it's stable, just as the Bank of Canada said. So they're holding the line because they think they're in a good spot. However, food prices continue to rise. And of course, we have to remember when we say food prices are up 4.7% at the end of the year, that's on top of massive increases along the way. So we're still seeing big gains. We all feel that, right? And the more vulnerable you are, the more that hits your bottom line. So that's a big one. And then, of course, housing is the perennial one. We have seen rents come down, so there's some good news on that. They're not below 2019 levels, so we're still above. But there's a bit of pressure coming out. And I will say again, that big picture, if we're going to lump everybody together, wages have caught up. So the good news is for a lot of people on aggregate, our wages have come now ahead of the pace of inflation. But it will be so individual. How do you feel is what matters. And what we've seen is that Canadians, when they have extra money, that we're actually saving it right now. So the question is, will we turn around and spend it?
Another big variable, Amanda, from a market perspective is artificial intelligence, right? It's something we've been talking about so much this year. And there has been a lot of discussion about possibly this AI bubble bursting, as we've seen with previous tech bubbles in the past decades. What impact is that going to have?
So this is an interesting one because a lot of the enthusiasm and the positivity in stocks is about AI, right? It's a handful of stocks, and the AI stocks are really leading the way higher, a chip stock, but also the AI companies. And for most people, that means the markets have gone up. If you have investments, you feel good about your investments. If it crashes, the opposite will happen. And even people that aren't deeply exposed to this will feel it. It feels bad when the market corrects. So we're watching it pretty carefully. There are people who say we've gone too far, it needs to pull back. I would say, though, I'm glad you brought up AI, because in 2026 for Canada, there are reasons to be optimistic about spending on this, on kind of some positivity around what it might bring for businesses. Long term, there might be some negatives, but 2026 might be a good year for AI in Canada. So leaving the stock market aside and what might happen there, I'd say it's still a good news story.
And speaking of next year, what are you most looking out for?
We have to get a resolution on the trade deal, right? We have that July deadline, so it looms over us. Maybe we get something sooner. And again, back to the weather being variable, for steel and aluminum, lumber, cabinet makers, there's still very real tariff pain right now. Maybe we get resolution on that early in the year, I hope so. But really, clarity on our trade situation has to be something we get in 2026.
Amanda, thank you so much for your insights this year, and happy holidays to you and your family.
Happy holidays, thanks.
Still ahead, Team USA selects Canadian fan favorites as players go for gold. The Olympic torch relay across Italy really went downhill today. You can see one skier there holding the Olympic flame instead of ski poles, as the 26th leg of the torch relay involved hitting some snowy slopes. In total, the torch will have traveled more than 12,000 kilometers around Italy before the games begin next month. We also learned today that Canada's chief rival in both men's and women's hockey will have some players that Canadians are used to cheering for, as the U.S. released its hockey rosters today.
To the outside, tracked by Burakovsky. Brady Tkachuk posted in.
Ottawa Senators captain Brady Tkachuk is among those on the U.S. team, along with the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Austin Matthews. The two also took some lighthearted shots at Canadians earlier this month in a promo for the games with actor Jon Hamm.
You're going to Milan to bring home the biggest prize of all.
Canadian tears.
Yeah. Exactly. Wait, what? What did Canada do?
Stuff.
But they're usually so polite.
Not anymore.
Really? No.
Kyle Connor is one of two stars from the Winnipeg Jets on the American squad. He'll be joined by goalie Connor Hellebuck, but one TSN hockey analyst says Canada should still have the edge.
I get that Team USA has a lot of different types of players, but Canada's got the much better offense in that roster that they were able to put together.
Walking in, drops it off. Stacey can't get through Phillips.
On the women's side, American Gwyneth Phillips normally stops pucks for the PWHL's Ottawa Charge when not playing for her country. The Canadian women's roster is expected to be announced next week. Yes, the countdown to the games is on. That is our newscast for this Friday. I'm Heather Butts for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching. Good night, and I'll see you again tomorrow.
Canada's #1 newscast for excellence in journalism.
We begin tonight with breaking news.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina, winner of the Canadian Screen Award for Best National Newscast. Watch weeknights at 11.